day, Fantasy Flyer followers. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Flyer. I'm sitting here in the Fantasy Lab, which is really a fancy name for my kitchen/living room. How you doing, Taylor?
Not bad. I feel like now I need to come up with a name for my I don't know,
Dojo.
makeshift home office. My dojo. Yes, I'm in the fantasy dojo.
Yeah, there you go. I've only been saying it for like 3 weeks, so I guess you finally you
Oh,
finally left out enough.
you know what? Yeah, that has not clicked.
That is not all right. That's fair. That's fair. If you're gonna ditch and just focus in real quick, I'd rather you do it right at the beginning.
I get tunnel vision.
That's all
I
right.
got
That's
I
all
got a
right.
thought and it sits there until I say it.
Well, in terms of the football landscape, I would say for once, since the trade deadline, we've actually had probably 2 solid days of quiet. I think that's nice. I think it's a nice little pause before we go into week 9 now. Or if well, technically we already started because of last night's game, but either way, as we get into week 9, this show is going to consist obviously of our preview for all of the games. There are 6 teams on bye, which Taylor will talk about momentarily and briefly because they're on bye. But then we're going to go through, we're going to have a game of 4 downs. We're also going to give you the 5 fantasy flyers that you could trust because I think there's actually some really juicy names because of 2 major season ending injuries that happened. So I'm going to let you take it away with our news, injuries, notes, etc. section. Taylor, balls in your court.
So this is our second 9-9, if you will. But last or Tuesday we called it the trade deadline show. Anyways, bye week reminders: Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and San Francisco 49ers. So Arizona Cardinals, James Conner with his rib injury continues to be questionable. It looks like he is a game time decision, so it does seem like he is trending towards potentially playing, but it's still up in the air. So keep an eye on that. If you're a Connor owner or a Benjamin owner, I believe, yeah, Daryl Williams is on IR, so he's no longer a factor. The rookie Keontae Ingram would be the other beneficiary. Atlanta, Cordero Patterson with his knee injury. He is still designated as IR, and they are waiting until Saturday to make the decision as to whether he will come off IR and return Sunday. So it seems like he's been practicing and whatnot with the team, but they have yet to make the call. I guess the fact that they're waiting on making the call till Saturday kind of feels like he wouldn't be much of a factor, but that's just sort of where my head's at with that. Baltimore, Rashad Bateman, unfortunately, with his foot injury, they have him marked as out, but he is slated to undergo season-ending Liz Frank surgery. So that's unfortunate. Duvernay will continue to be a huge benefactor there. Their tight end, whoever's playing, will be a big factor. And then they kind of have some
Everyone
yeah,
else.
fill in name here. But we'll touch on some of these guys here in regards to tight end Mark Andrews' shoulder and ankle. He is questionable, didn't practice Friday, so that's not something you want to see, which means Isaiah Likely would be a big benefactor. J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, his knee issues continue to plague him, and they've placed him on IR. He had another knee surgery, which was successful. So I don't know what his timetable is, if he will even be back this season. Gus Edwards with his hamstring injury is questionable. He sat out second consecutive practice on Friday, so that's not trending in the right direction. Kenyon Drake and Justice Hill, benefactors. And then one of their wide receivers that sort of has made some splashes here. Demarcus Robinson groin is questionable, limited participant in Friday's practice. So if you're looking for someone to play from the wide receiving room of Baltimore, you may be able to find some value, but I would imagine it would be Lamar Jackson kind of putting the team on his back, and Duvernay and hopefully Andrews being a huge part of the offense. Moving on to Carolina, Chuba Hubbard is out with his ankle injury, so Foreman will continue to be the bell cow and really get a lot of work there. Detroit, Josh Reynolds back. He is listed as doubtful. DeAndre Swift, ankle, shoulder, and Brock Wright, concussion. Brock Wright being the tight end that will fill in with Hawkinson gone. They are both questionable. Green Bay, Allen Lazard, shoulder, Christian Watson, concussion. They are both questionable. Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor, ankle, he is out. So Deion Jackson, I doubt Zach Moss will be a huge benefactor at this point, but who knows? But Deion Jackson, we've seen him fill in and play nicely with JT out. Jacksonville, minor injury note here. Jamal Agnew, knee, he is questionable. Las Vegas Raiders, Darren Waller, hamstring, questionable. Practiced in limited capacity all week, so that seems like he may play. As to how effective he'll be, that's obviously up in the air. Los Angeles Chargers, Keenan Allen, hamstring, he is out this week versus Atlanta, which stinks for the whole team. With Mike Williams obviously out as well. So
It sucks, but he said it 2 weeks ago. He was like, "Don't play me," and he aggravated it in that game. And then the bye week didn't help. So they set themselves back 2 weeks because they didn't listen to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. So DeAndre Carter, Josh Palmer should see a huge uptick. Carter has an illness and is questionable. Palmer is off the injury report, which is awesome. Gerald Everett will see a big uptick, especially Donald Parham Jr. hamstring is listed as out. So Palmer, Everett, I would definitely be going after if you can snag them, if they're still out there. I would imagine a lot of people already have definitely Everett and probably snagged Palmer with Williams being out and Keenan being questionable.
Next in line for the Chargers is like Michael Bandy, and I don't trust that.
I know.
So I mean, it's not a great situation if Carter is out. If Carter is in, I mean, Palmer at this point has to be your wide receiver one that you can trust. If Carter is in, you can love some Carter. I'm very high on him, but I do not know if he will play, so I had to remove him from my lineup.
Yeah. Honestly, my favorite options would be obviously Eckler, who's been incredible, but he's going to get a lot of work here, especially in the passing game as he has.
By a mile.
Yeah, and Everett, just because Palmer, although he's probably ahead of Carter, he just hasn't been able to practice with the team for a while, or at least on a full capacity due to concussion protocols. So I'm sure Palmer will be fine and have a great game, but I would rather play Everett.
Right.
Moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. That sounded so weird? I don't know, just because obviously they've moved over the past couple of years. But anyways, Kyren Williams, the rookie who's been on IR due to an ankle injury, the decision has not been made yet as to whether they will activate him off of IR. So I guess it's just a note since they are having a lot of running back issues, and he seems like somebody that they really liked in the preseason. The fact that they haven't made a decision yet, I don't really know how much I would want to even put him in if he does come off of IR. There also has been notes about Cam Akers potentially coming back. I don't know. Their running back situation is a crapshoot. But moving forward, Kyren Williams might be nice depending on how things pan out with Cam Akers. Van Jefferson, who came off IR and played last week, although was not very involved. He's questionable with his knee issues. So maybe we'll see another good week from Allen Robinson. New England, Devontae Parker, unfortunately, is out with a knee issue. I didn't see too much about it, but that stinks for the team. But Jacoby should be a huge benefactor since he is always so involved. And maybe even Hunter Henry or Johnny Smith. Other wide receivers, Tyquan Thornton, Nelson Aguilar maybe, but Parker's really the only, or sorry, Myers is really, and Ramondre are really the only two that I'm looking at, especially with Damian Harris questionable due to an illness. He was a limited participant Friday, and just because Harris may be out, I also put Pierre Strong hamstring. He is questionable. So Ramondre Stevenson, and nobody else will probably be the running back room. New Orleans, Michael Thomas, unfortunately, due to his dislocated toe, has been placed on IR, will undergo surgery, and is likely out the rest of the season. So
Already
Olave,
dropped him. Can't wait
yeah.
to talk to you about a trade. Got
Oh.
plenty of cap space now. Got plenty of cap space. They got I think two or 3 weeks until trade deadline. Can't wait.
I mean, I'm probably holding on to Olave, who will now be the number one for
Smart.
sure. But yeah,
That's smart. I know I don't have the stuff to get him from you, but no, it sucks for Thomas and it sucks for me because he was I think he only played 3 or 4 games and he had 50 fantasy points in those
yeah, he
games
was solid in those
and
games.
then just completely fell off because of his toe. So
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, it is unfortunate. This poor guy hasn't played too much football in the past like 2, 3 years. So,
mhm.
uh, the other vet that they have, Jarvis Landry, with his injury is questionable. Was limited on Friday as well. So he seems like he's trending in the right direction, but I don't know if this is the week. Adam Troutman, ankle injury, questionable, also limited on Friday in practice. Jets, Corey Davis, who I think on Tuesday we said was trending in the right direction. It sounds like he is out with his knee issues. So fire up Garrett Wilson again, probably. uh, Seattle, Marquise Goodwin, groin, he is out. Not that that really matters because both Metcalf and Lockett are not on the injury report, so that's all you really care about there. I have here Penny Hart hamstring questionable, but again, wide receivers, you're looking at Metcalf and Lockett.
Right.
Tampa Bay, Russell Gage hamstring is out. Cameron Brate neck out. Gage hasn't been overly involved, especially now that Godwin is back. So Evans, Godwin, maybe Julio Jones, who apparently was not on the injury report. Cade Otton may continue to see some good work. They just really need to get him on everybody on the same page as Brady. So, or maybe it's vice versa, Brady on the same page as everyone else. They had a couple throws to Cade Otton that could have been touchdowns, and they weren't. So they are looking at him in the red zone is what that is saying there basically. Um, Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill ankle questionable, limited participant Friday. Man, do they need him? Obviously,
You mean they can't completely just only use Derrick Henry?
yeah. I mean that's basically what they did last week, and they did okay. But
Yeah,
geez,
there's a difference between the Texans and the Chiefs.
right, yeah. So that's you gotta hope he can come back. We'll see what happens there. Washington, Jahan Dotson continues to be out with his hamstring issues, but they are hoping to have him back next week. JD McKissick neck out. He's probably going to see a specialist. I'm not sure what's going on there, but they are being cautious with him. And then just a defensive note that would have made a huge difference for Washington. Chase Young with his knee injury apparently is off of IR, but is out and won't be activated this week. So hopefully they get him back the following week because he will make a huge, huge difference for defense. That's it for the 9.
Yeah, the usual Friday update, a little longer than Tuesdays. That's what we're here for. So interesting, some pieces. I mean, we're going to reference a few of those as we go through the games. There's some interesting things that I have, some interesting quandaries that I found when I wrote up the show plan for a lot of these games that make them more interesting than they may be. Maybe some that make them less interesting than they may be. But um, we'll quickly go over the Thursday Night Football review because I actually found a stream of it online in places that I can't tell people because it's probably not legal. Although I don't know why I care. I didn't post it and they can't tackle me. I just found it.
Right.
But I did. I was able to watch a good chunk of that Eagles and Texans game. I had a no sweat bet through FanDuel that did not cash out for the $2,400 it could have. I wasn't far off. Wasn't far off, but unfortunately, you miss one on a parlay and it's done.
Yeah.
Eagles, who looked a lot more like, I don't know, the Seahawks or the Cardinals of the first 4 weeks of the season. The Eagles did not jump out to the lead. I expected them to, which was step one of my parlay not going right. Is what it is. The first drive seemed very underwhelming for them in that game. Houston actually came to play. I don't know. Did you watch any of the game?
Yeah. I was watching off and on, and then I recapped with the highlights. Yeah, Houston was very solid in the first. Honestly, they weren't bad throughout the entire game. They had more turnovers in the second half, unfortunately, with what, two
Yeah,
picks that really hurt them. One
yeah,
was like they were within the 20, so they kept this game close, and they honestly could have made something out of it if Mills was a little more experienced and didn't make some bad decisions.
yeah. And that's the sad part about it is because that's gonna be this like that game would probably have the same result the next 2 years. Like you have to
Right.
give Mills that much time probably because I think Philadelphia's defense wasn't top notch either.
No,
Uh,
and Hughes was really making problems for Hertz.
yeah, and that's in not only Steven Nelson comes up with the forced fumble and the I think it was the second or third drive. That
Something like that, yeah.
it was like a tied game, and they're like, all right, here comes they scored the touchdown the first drive. Eagles come back and score one again right afterwards, 7-7. And then the Texans fault, and I think it was like 3 and out or 5 and out or something like whatever.
Mm,
And then here comes now the Eagles are going to run away with it, and there's a fumble like at the third play by a great blitz. So,
yeah.
um, but after the fumble, I mean, I feel like this is kind of highlights that the Texans they're ranked lower than the league in a lot of places, and they kept with Philly the first half. I mean, it was tied at
Yeah.
halftime. It was tied at halftime. It could have been 17-14, but Jake Elliott decided to miss wide right. Um, no Cooks, no problem. I mean, if there's any confidence, they need to release him, which is the only option. If you want him gone, you either make him happy with puppies and rainbows, or you release him.
Right.
And I think if you're going to release him, you are still paying him $18 million. Am I correct?
I don't know the money, but
I don't know how. Well, that's what he's owed next year. So, and it's supposed to be fully guaranteed. I
mm,
don't know how that works with releases, and that would concern me if I'm Houston.
I would
But
imagine that yes, he would be owed that unless he gets picked up, right? And then the other team
it's got to be a time limit on it
maybe.
if he's not. Which somebody's going to pick him up, so that's the safe
Right.
part. Um, but yeah, Eagles definitely outplayed the Texans in the second. Both defenses were somewhat. I put matched throughout the game, but in reality, the Eagles stepped up more in the second half, combined with a little slippage from Mills. But
Yeah.
also Damian Pierce, absolute monster,
Oh my
and
God. Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on the limb. I don't think anybody's talking about next year yet. I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say top 8 running back if you can stay healthy. Might
Man,
be a
but I
top.
love that.
He's close to a top 8 running back right now. So, but that's because you have. I mean, like you have the production out of him that you want out of Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
And Jonathan Taylor is putting the production up that you get from Rex Burkhead. So,
Yeah.
yeah, for Philadelphia, Hurts 21 for 27, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, had the fumble. Sanders 17 carries, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. Not the normal run game we see against the Texans, which is
Mm,
interesting. Side note. Dallas Goedert was the receiver of the day for Philadelphia. 8 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. AJ Brown 6 targets, 4 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown for Houston. What the heck? Hold on. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Okay. A little small time technical problem. For Houston, Davis Mills 13 for 22, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I had him under 200 yards. It was dead on with that. It's just Damian Pierce, 27 carries, 139 yards. I had him over 100 yards. I was so right with that. Chris Moore, good to see Chris Moore back. I think 4 for 5 out of his targets, caught 4
Yeah.
of them,
And a
43
touchdown.
yards and a touchdown, which for some reason took a very long time to review. I don't.
Mm,
He like he caught it and slid for like 6 yards, and then like when he got up, he dropped it, and for some reason the refs had to spend 85 seconds looking at a camera about that. He caught it for
Yeah,
sure.
I I only saw the condensed
Don't
version, so I
justify it.
didn't see them really go
No,
into it too
it
much.
was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, it looked like a touchdown to me in the
Yeah.
limited capacity I saw. I don't know if they were just trying to determine whether he actually had good possession of it. I don't know.
Philip Dorsett, 3 catches on 5 targets for 69 yards.
This is so cool.
Next up for Philadelphia, they will take on Washington, who will likely have Chase Young back at that point, I
I
imagine.
hope.
A good game to bring him back for. You need everything you can for that one. Houston will travel to New York, take on the Giants, or near New York to take on the Giants. Eagles are 8-0. A lot of folks were getting into it on Facebook today because there was a post from NFL memes that was like, they beat the Texans, they beat Cooper Rush and not Dak, they beat, any number of teams, that they beat a rookie quarterback and Kenny Pickett, that like basically making excuses for why they're 8-0. And I don't think I care. I'm a Cowboys fan and I don't think I care.
Yeah,
Congrats to them. Like, any given Sunday is a two-way street.
right.
If you're going to say, oh, any of these teams can beat you, the Texans almost did it last night, right? If you're going to say any of these teams can beat you, well, that's great, but that is valor when they don't beat them. Like, that is a football game that they have won clearly.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the Eagles are. They're not, their main objective is to win football games, and they are. And that's
Right.
all, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, even if they're not playing their best, they find ways to get back in the game, stay in the game. And I mean, for the most part, they're demolishing teams. They're shooting them out, and it's not the case, but their defense is pretty solid, and obviously their offense is good. So they are more well-rounded than I thought they would be at the beginning of the season. And they're doing a fine job adjusting and figuring things out when they need to.
Yeah. Someone tried to tell me strength of schedule didn't matter. I'm like, okay, kind of, but also not. Like, it's hard to give you a strength of schedule that does matter so much because it's all based off last year's win percentages.
Yeah.
And the entire NFC East was 28th through 32nd in strength of schedule this year. And it shows. You look at the NFC East, and 8-0, 6-2, 5-3, like, they're good. And then someone tried to type in and they said, well, no, it's the 12th strength. The strength of schedule for the Eagles is the 12th. And I'm like, that's adjusted for who they face so far.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't you know it, all the other 3 NFC East teams have a tougher strength of schedule because they've all played the Eagles. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
We're going to play our game of 4 downs. We're going to do this one early before we get into the preview. Do you want to go first? Do you want to go second?
I can go first.
Okay. All right. Lay it on me.
All right. So I kind of themed mine around basically this week, whether sort of a line of where I think people will finish. I did.
Real quick,
All right.
for those who don't know 4 downs, he's going to read 4 sentences to me, and I'm going to rank them in likelihood that I think they will happen, from most likely to least likely. 4 sentences, 4 downs. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was good. Yeah,
Explain that.
we probably should recap what it is. All right, so first down, Aaron Rodgers is a top 8 QB this week. He's playing Detroit.
Okay.
Raheem Mostert is a top 10 running back this week against Chicago, who is the second worst run defense. Josh Palmer is a top 15 wide receiver this week against Atlanta, who is pretty sure they're dead last against wide receivers. Zach Ertz is a top 3 tight end this week against Seattle, who is
dead last.
Yeah, I think they're dead last as well. They're definitely at the bottom.
I would not be surprised if all the tight ends from that game only catch the ball. Those are the only catches. The Seahawks and the Cardinals are 32nd and 31st respectively against tight ends. It's So least likely for me is an easy one, and that's Mostert being you said top 10?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's least likely.
Okay.
Two reasons. One, because you already have a top 10 performance from Damian Pierce. He's not outrushing Damian Pierce. I don't see him getting 140 yards. Tua can run and will likely also run. Also, we don't know about Jeff Wilson, who will probably get some downs, and he's not the feature of the offense. It's
That's
Hill and
fair.
Waddle. So that's least likely for me right off the rip. Because he just has to leap like four. He has like 4 hurdles to get over to even really crack like 100 yards. Rodgers top 8. There are some really, really horrible games for quarterbacks this week. Not for everybody else, but for quarterback.
Yeah.
You said Josh Palmer, top 15 wide receiver against the Falcons.
Yeah.
And then what was the last one? Zach Ertz, top
3.
3 tight end. See, it's another one where like he's not the feature of the offense, but you know he's going to get some work.
Yeah. And I guess
That's the toughest one for me, I think, is that Ertz one. I would put third, like next least likely, I guess, is Palmer being a top 15. Because again, so many good matchups. God, Palmer's third, least likely. And I'm gonna say Rodgers top 8 is most likely out of that. And then Ertz is second. And that just
Okay.
hurt. That's tough because that I could swap those if I'm wrong in that respect. And Ertz is a top 3 and Rodgers is like the QB 10. Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Because Detroit is bad in a lot of aspects, but I feel like they're a little more focused on the run now. I don't know. Maybe that's a gut. I don't have any stats to back that up, but maybe that's just a gut that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm gonna go
mean, one thing to note, obviously 6 teams on bye this week as opposed to the usual 4.
Mhm.
And
Armageddon.
and of those, Niners, Kittle being out, Fryermuth with Steelers, Dulcich with the Broncos. Schultz hasn't really been playing, so yeah.
I'm gonna take Schultz, yeah. In this respect, for him being a QB3, I still see something in my head tells me that Waller can have a good game if he plays.
Mm.
No Corey Davis, and the Jets are going to have to throw. Tyler Conklin is lined up for a second repeat of. I mean, they got to guard somebody. Like you're going to end up throwing it. You're good. I think you're going to see 7 to 8 different people catch a ball from the Jets.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Smith could catch a ball. Like Braxton Berrios could go for 4 catches. Like it's
he does have some good games. Yeah.
Right. They're going to have to throw it. Like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, they will have to have the number of receivers that Josh Allen has.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have to move the ball. Don't make it so easy to know where it's going. That's just a little preview of what we'll talk about when we get to the game. If they want to have a shot. Travis Kelce, he's playing.
Right.
Hard to say no to that one. Like, and so like there's 3 off the top of my head that seem very plausible. And then Ertz still finding his way into the rotation behind DeAndre Hopkins, which is my curveball for that one.
Right. And Rondale Moore.
To a certain extent. I feel like they're kind of like meshing.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see any other like huge threats to that top. Evan Ingram could have a ceiling game. There's Tyler Higbee would have to absolutely go to his high to his ceiling to be there too. Not absolutely.
Yeah, I could throw out Tunyon being up against Detroit.
And Mark Andrews is on Monday. Assuming he plays, he does have the extra day of rest.
That's true.
It's important to note. Limited would mean a lot to every other team except for that game on Monday night.
Yeah.
So there's no practice tomorrow for travel, I imagine, and then Sunday will probably be walkthrough Monday game. So I imagine he's done practicing for the week as it is. I can see him playing. So I don't think he's a top 3. Rodgers, on the other hand, we just saw 2 I think he can beat Hurts and Mills' performance from last night. So there's 2 out of the way. And the Detroit's just bad. So that's my take on those. My turn now. My
Yep.
4 downs. All right. Down number 1, the Bears. This is a regular season one for the rest of the season.
Okay.
So you did your this week. I'm doing the rest of the season. So
All right.
down number 1, the Bears will finish the regular season with more wins. I didn't finish the sentence, so we're gonna make a team up off the top of my head. More wins
Okay.
than the More wins than the Ravens.
Yeah.
We'll make the trade. We'll make you analyze that trade so hard for Rope Wrestling. Down number 2, the Eagles finish the season with at least 14 wins. Down number 3, the Broncos finish 2 games above 500 at least. 2 games or more above 500.
Okay.
Down number 4, the Bills will lose back-to-back games at any point during the rest of the season. So I feel like it's only fair for you if I give you at least the Bills schedule, because the Bills that I feel like that matters to your decision, if you will. So I'm just going to list off the remaining teams because back to back. So Jets, then Vikings, Browns, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, Bears, Bengals, Patriots, in that order.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking at the Broncos. I'm looking at the Broncos now to see if they will finish above 500. If I asked a dumb question, and that's a good question. No, it's a good question. They have to play the Chiefs twice still, so there's that one for you.
Yeah. Okay. So least likely, I am between the Bears with more wins than Baltimore and Bills losing back to back as my least likely. Or wait. So I should start with whatever. Okay.
You can start wherever you want. I went
Yeah.
backwards. Wherever
Yeah.
you
We
figure
always- I
one of the
think-
4 out and then move it one way. That's the way I
Right.
figured.
I think we usually go in the opposite direction for some reason. Okay. Least likely. I'm gonna go Bills losing back to back as least likely, followed by Bears.
Okay.
Broncos being above 500, and then Eagles finishing with at least 14 wins as most likely.
Okay. I didn't give you the schedule for that one, so I'm glad that you had. That one's I think that's probably the toughest of them, because we know how hard it is to go through a season and not slip up.
Right.
Like momentum is a huge thing for those undefeated teams. You have to keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. And
yeah, I mean, for the listeners, Commanders, Colts, Packers, Titans, Giants, Bears, Cowboys, Saints, Giants. So
Giants, Packers, Bears, Cowboys, you cannot slip.
Right.
Cannot slip. And that's 5 of the remaining 7 games. With that being said, 5 of the remaining 7, that's bad math. 5 of the remaining 9 games, excuse me. I think they will probably come close to 14 wins. I do. And again, pressure mounting for playoffs is different, but it's a strong team. I'm like, as a Cowboys fan, I'm thoroughly impressed with that Eagles team. So
yeah,
you have it on record. I said it. And I should be. It's they've been playing very well. Good set of 4 downs. I don't hate any of that at all. I don't hate it. Right before when we come back, we're gonna get into our week 9 preview. Real quick, we're gonna hit a fantasy flyer water break, hit the cooler, play a commercial, make some money. We're probably not gonna make some money. We're just doing this for fun. Taylor, sign us off. We'll be right back.
We'll see you on the other side, Al.
And welcome back to the Fantasy Flyer Part 2. We're gonna jump right in to the week 9 preview. We're going to go through all the games, although we are 3 short from our normal slate because of the buys. We will start off with the 6-1 Vikings traveling to Washington to take on the 4-4 Commanders. Minnesota, 3-point favorites, the over-under at 43.5. And we're starting right off, rip roaring. We got ourselves a host v host matchup. This is I think it's a good game, but it's only a good game in the fact that I think the winner for the most part is decided, barring like the over-under for this game is fair. I don't know if I agree with 3 points for Minnesota because it seems like they're a lot better than the Commanders. But I don't know. Maybe it's because of Hawk and how I don't know. But yeah, Vikings they look pretty decent. And then they added this guy at tight end. I don't know if anybody's heard of him called TJ Hawkinson. He's he's all right. He's decent. I might pick him up. Hawk on deck. In your opinion, how does he affect the pass game? Because we've seen Justin Jefferson we talked about it on Tuesday's show. He has 0 receiving touchdowns since week 2. We're going into week 9. So for Justin Jefferson owners, his yards and receptions have been carrying him, and they've been good numbers. My initial opinion is it doesn't really affect his yards after carry or his reception so much. I think if anything, it makes him more viable in the red zone.
So that's where I'm kind of teetering. Hawkinson being such a big body and obviously a very good pass catcher, I could see him being, I won't say their primary target, but somebody that they favor in the red zone. Thielen's always been somebody that Kirk looks at in the red zone. I would say Jefferson stays the course, doesn't really change too much.
Right.
I don't know if he'll see more touchdowns because of this. I was actually thinking the opposite. But yeah, I don't think this affects Jefferson that much. If anything, it might open things up a little bit for him. But yeah, I think Hawkinson.
That's what I think.
Right. And I think
they have to guard the middle of the field.
I think Hawkinson this week with limited practice with the team may sort of, I think he'll be involved from a blocking standpoint, maybe see dump offs and probably be involved in the red zone. But I don't think he's going to go ham yardage catch wise. I think he's going to be out there, but minimally involved in the offense and less necessary, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm jumping head first in.
Yeah.
I think he's my start of the week for this game.
I mean, he's got to learn the playbook and everything.
So did Christian McCaffrey. How well that go? He played 60% of snaps in his first game or something. It was stupid.
But he was also like, I don't know.
He had the exact same amount of time. Don't give me that.
No, but fantasy points wise, he was far less than.
There's a higher ceiling for running backs of his caliber than there is for a tight end.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. Yeah. I can see Hawk as being an 8 to 10 point fantasy contributor here.
Yeah, I can get behind that for sure.
His ceiling, and if because that thought process that you share, not a bad one by any means. I'm not discrediting it all. But if you're the Commanders and you think that way, guess who catches the touchdown? Hawkinson. So, like, that's the thing. So, and Kirk Cousins has been known to spread the ball and then not spread the ball. So now you're really up in the air, right? My start of this is Hawk. I like him joining right in. And again, it's not going to be, I know the plays. I think there could be some miscommunication, and that's all right. I don't think he's going to see 80%. Munt is a little more familiar with it. I wouldn't be surprised to see 50-50, and he will probably have to play a good amount because Irv Smith ain't there. He's hurt. So he's gonna get on the field, and that's my gut says that Hawk slips in somewhat decently with this team. In correlation to that, sit KJ Osborne because there aren't enough targets to go around now. That's my gut. If it could be the exact opposite, he could have one catch, Hawk could, and Osborne could have 7. But I'm gonna go with the other way because Washington's actually seen it more recently than Minnesota has. For Washington, they're somehow 4-4, which I guess happens when you beat Sam Ellinger.
Well, haven't they won 3 straight since Heineke has started?
Yeah, that's true because they beat the Packers. They at least won 2 straight. They probably have won 3.
Yeah, 3 straight.
Release Carson Wentz. That's just what that says. That's obviously the answer. Yeah, I'm gonna say Gibson is probably your most wanted to start running back. I'm sitting Brian Robinson this week until I see something different, and that's the only reason I say that is because if you have Robinson, you should have Gibson and vice versa.
Right.
Like I don't think he's been a high waiver wire pickup at any given point where he should have been picked up unless he was a handcuff to Gibson. So the favoritism goes back to Gibson in my opinion. McLaurin should start wide receiver. Curtis Samuel is still a strong option. I don't hate starting him in this matchup because I think Heineke is going to have to throw it once again a little bit more. I know there's been a change of QB, but I feel like this team hasn't changed a lot over the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's been a different face on the front of the team at times, but I feel like they haven't pulled any tricks out of the bag. They could here. I guess that's part of the 3-point favorite. Also, it's in Washington, so that'll do it. It's probably 2 or 3 more points. But 2 teams that allow the ball to be thrown. Minnesota is better in the red zone for defending passes. Washington 172 yards per game allowed. Minnesota's 198 yards per game. However, the difference in points scored, it's actually Minnesota's done better than Washington has because Washington's allowed so many to score. Yeah, I like the Vikings in this one, and I like it by more than 3. That's just my take on it. KJ and Brian Robinson, my sits. My score for this is 32-21 for Minnesota.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really leaning into Hawkinson making a difference here.
I'm leaning into Minnesota being a better football team.
Well, yeah.
Up until last week, I will side with you because you brought up a great point
That's
last
what I was
Friday.
gonna say, yeah.
That they scored between 22 and 29 points in like every game, and then they went out and scored 34, 35. Right. So they're score heavy compared to a lot of teams. They're score heavy. They're probably in the top 6 or 7 average for score per game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going in the higher end of that average right now.
I toyed with that. I ended up with Vikings 26, Commanders 19. I also think that the spread is too low. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough, and I like that score too. That's a good. The 20 to 17 scores are so boring. We both went with 2. I don't know. That's just me. My 32 comes beyond. I think Heineke throws like 2 interceptions in this game. I don't think it's going to be the most amazing game for Heineke. Moving along, Chargers 4-3 at the Falcons 4-4. Another game that's probably a smaller over/under or smaller spread because of the home field advantage. Chargers 3-point favorites over/under at 49.5, which is a little larger than I thought it would
decent, be.
Yeah. We kind of talked about this in the 9 segment. No Allen, no Williams. Who is the benefactor? And I think it comes down to the 3 names we mentioned. You brought up Gerald Everett, great person to bring up. DeAndre Carter, should he play? Yeah, lock and load. Josh Palmer, if you got him, lock and load. Go to town. Those are the only 3 who I trust to have more than 5 targets.
Right.
7 targets. They're probably going to end up with 7 or 8 targets apiece, if not more. The only other one, like we talked about, was Michael Bland. I don't know.
Bandy.
Yeah. Bland. His name is Bland. That's why I thought
he did have 6 targets last week. Only caught 1. But that was without Palmer. Yeah.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
for that. The other factor in that is you have a pass catching running back in Austin Eckler who's between like 11 and 15 targets on average. um, you can trust in him again. Atlanta is giving up an average of 21 carries for 92 yards through 8 weeks, and that's not even where they're bad to running backs. It's actually a pass catching. So they allow 35 yards per game. I put recording, which is not the correct word. Receiving, that's the correct verb. Um, it, that's on 5 catches. So they average 7 yards per catch to running backs. That's about what Austin Eckler averages. He's about 8 to 9, somewhere around the 50 to 55 mark. So I would not be surprised to see Eckler with a touchdown on the ground and in the air. Atlanta has a better opportunity for their running back because the Chargers are also atrocious to running backs, worse than than the Falcons. I say that because this is Chase Huntley, Caleb Huntley. I did this on Tuesday and I still don't. Caleb. As at least my second guess was right. Chargers allow 128 yards per game to running backs on the ground, 30 yards per game in the air to running backs. Those are 31st in the league. So could do some better stuff there. The problem is with that is Atlanta loves to run the ball. That's like their main way of moving the football. And last week you saw them kind of get air heavy, and it worked against a team that attacks at the line. So a team stopped them from running. They threw the ball and they succeeded. We talked about Patterson maybe not returning. He could return. I think that's makes a huge difference in this spread. Personally. And I also think that the Falcons have a better chance of winning this game, like substantially better chance if he's playing. I'm interested to see if Kyle Pitts can continue to pick himself up, and that's what I have from this game. My start out of the 3 that we named is DeAndre Carter, because for some reason I feel like Josh Palmer is going to be the heavy hand. He's seen more targets already this year. Carter has deep ball capability. My sit is Drake London because he's not a wide receiver 1 in capacity as much as you want him to be. So I'll take. Man, it all hinges on Patterson for me. If Patterson doesn't play, I'm taking the Chargers. If he plays, I'm taking the Falcons, and that unfortunately is too much of a gamble for me to tell you which one I want outright.
Yeah. I would go Chargers just because Herbert, Eckler alone, Mariota, he could flip a switch and just be horrendous. I don't want to put my faith on him, but for them to win, he's got to be able to run the ball a little bit, and he's got to they need to throw the ball. They can't be throwing it 18 times. Like, that's just not going to work, even if the Chargers aren't great against the run. So Pitts needs to be more involved as he has been, and honestly, London needs to be more involved like he was in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. Moving on, Dolphins 5-3 travel to Chicago for a visit with the 3-5 Bears. Miami 4.5-point favorites in Chicago, so that's a full touchdown in a normal, in Miami, I guess. Over under at 45.5. This is the second of our host games. And we talked about this on Tuesday, where I thought this would be a compelling matchup, and why not? Chicago looking mighty competitive recently. I think we can both agree with that. I am interested to see what the defense looks like with 0 linebackers that are all pros. It's gonna be different. Jaquan Brisker is probably like a top 3 defender on that team now on a player basis, like 2 or 3, like safely. I don't know who else they really have on that. I don't know. Hill and Waddle, of course, par for the course. They're the attack. They're the staple of Miami's attack.
Yeah.
Like I said, when we did 4 downs, that's who Raheem Mostert has to be. Raheem Mostert is still my start coming out of this game because, like you had said in your statement, the Bears are 31st against the run. So do with that what you will. but Chicago is still very bad at stopping the run, and the only thing that can get Mostert's way is Jeff Wilson. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to really be the case. Chase Claypool, Jeff Wilson, Bradley Chubb, 3 debuts in 1 game. So Bradley Chubb just got a huge contract extension. Miami likes him. He'll do something. Chase Claypool, he will probably have some catches. That's going to be a thing for him. Jeff Wilson may or may not put a uniform on. The game could be close, but it's Chicago's got to play like they have been. And the reason I did not reference any Chicago stats because they're all year long. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen a different Chicago team that
Yes.
do not reflect any of the first 6 weeks of football. So start Mostert. I'm going to sit Montgomery, and that's for 2 reasons. One, Khalil Herbert is more pass catching. And if Miami's going to be leading, the run will probably fall a little to the backdrop. We know this team has run for 200 yards in 3 straight weeks. So take that with a grain of salt when I say sit Montgomery, but he's the one that I like. I guess he's not really even a sit. He's the one I like the least.
Yeah.
So anything from this one for you? I feel like it's a really good game. I feel like it's going to be a really good game. I'm saying that like it's happening right now. I have you ready for this one? I took Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, Chicago 26-23. I have a little bit of faith in the Chicago defense. I have more faith in their offense now. And I feel like Justin Fields has 1 or 2 more weapons beside Tyreek Hill's out there somewhere. So yeah, your take on it.
I have the Dolphins 28 and the Bears 23. I mean, to your point, Chubb on defense, that's pretty big for Miami. But obviously, like we've been saying, Chicago has really figured something out over the past few weeks. So I don't see them slouching in this game. So I felt that this over under was a little low. I think my score adds up to 51.
Mine's 49. I'm right
okay.
there with you.
Yeah, and then my spread was 5 points. Yeah, 5 points. So I'm right around the spread, but I think it's going to go over. We haven't seen Miami's defense be too great so far. They've definitely stepped it up over the past couple of weeks. Chubb, first week in the system. I mean, he's still a great player. He's going to make some impact, but I don't know if it'll be. I don't know. All that's to say that, yeah, I could see Chicago making this very close. I think it's going to be a interesting game regardless. And yeah, like I said, I think they're both going to put up some points.
All right. Moving along, 2-6 Panthers at the 4-4 Bengals. Cincinnati favored by 7.5, over under at 42.5. Cincinnati has a top 3 defense in terms of completions allowed. I've said it for I think 3 straight weeks, and it seems to rear its ugly head, except for when you're Jacoby Brissett and Nick Chubb. PJ Walker is 30th in qualifying quarterbacks in terms of completion percentage. So it's lining up for, is it Deontay Foreman or is it Deontay Foreman?
Yeah.
Because this team's going to have to move the ball some way. PJ Walker has a 1-2 record as a starter. Important to note. He had that 1 win last week on a miracle throw. So let's be calm. He's still a good quarterback, and he's a better option than Baker Mayfield. And Sam Darnold, I don't know where he is, if he's on vacation. I don't know if they let him heal and then let him go quietly. I don't know if he's in the front office playing Uno.
No, I almost mentioned that during the 9, but he is still recovering, and they're still waiting on him.
All right. Well, that makes a little sense. Honestly, for that team and for DJ Moore, you need Sam Darnold. I'm sorry. I like DJ Moore though, in all reality.
Yeah.
This week specifically. So they're gonna have to move the ball. You gotta take shots. Carolina, the rush game is gonna have to keep it moving, keep the yards turning to stay in this game. Second, it'd be DJ Moore, but Deontay Foreman. The Bengals have a good defensive line, but Deontay Foreman has blown through 2 of them now. So I don't think that's really much of a concern. Cincinnati, on the other hand, we talked about it on Tuesday. They look different without Jamar Chase. But the other thing that I feel like is that Chase wasn't around for the first 4 or 5 weeks. He wasn't 7 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right. He wasn't as dominant. Yeah.
Right. He was 4 for 5, and they lost the first couple games, but they won. Like out of those 5 games, they won 2 or 3 of them. So I feel Carolina has a little bit more of an edge in defensive pressure. Shaq Thompson, Brian Burns, secondary, Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin's probably the only one who's going to have to guard. I would say T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to think that once again, I'm betting against the spread when it comes to the Bengals. I put in, I don't know if you saw this, I put in game predictions because I forgot, like my first thoughts, I wrote them down because I wanted to make sure I read them back. So that's the first one. We saw Cleveland do it last week. If you get pressure to Burrow when he can't just chuck it to Jamar Chase, it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolina created pressure against Tom Brady. They stopped up Leonard Fournette. They didn't really do it too well against Atlanta. But I feel like it's a good opportunity to bounce back. Joe Mixon hasn't been running the ball great. I'm sitting him this week. The best chance he has is in the pass game, but I will also caveat that with this asterisk. He had 7 catches last week and only managed 14 fantasy points. So they weren't really great catches, and he didn't run the ball. So
no.
My start is Deontay Foreman. Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. My prediction, more even first half matchup. Cincinnati comes alive in the second half. Pass game will eventually learn, whether it's to Mixon, whether it's to Hurst, whether it's to Tyler Boyd, whether it's to Samaje Perine, whoever it is. Cincinnati 22-14 over Carolina. Slow first half, and that's also under. So another small effect on this one. Anything you got from this one? Any predictions? Any words of wisdom? Do you like the Bengals? Do you like the Panthers?
Yeah, I like the Bengals. I think you said you felt like the spread was a little too big. If not, I do feel like this is a big spread. The Panthers with PJ Walker have actually been putting up points. So I don't know that I don't know that their chances of winning this game are that high, but I think that they could make some efforts at making it somewhat close. I won't say that it will be close.
I said that the spread felt a little too high for this one, and then I took Cincinnati by 8. So guess I didn't really think that. When it boils down, that's what matters. So
Yeah.
Cincinnati adapts a little better. They didn't adapt much last week versus Cleveland, but also Cleveland was up like 25-0 at halftime. So like,
yeah, I mean, that was their first game really without Chase, and Higgins, Boyd, Hurst, they're all much more capable than what we saw that last game.
Yeah. I feel comfortable going back on my original gut sentence when I read that over-under. Next game, Packers, 3-5 Packers traveling to Detroit to take on the 1-6 Lions. In Detroit, Green Bay is a 3.5-point favorite with the over-under at 49.5. I feel like this is a small spread because this seems like a game where the second half Green Bay can walk away. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating Detroit again.
I guess
this is a game where 2 weeks ago I would have said TJ Hawkinson will be the one to catch the touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't feel that comfortable saying that about Brock Wright.
Yeah. He's also questionable.
Well, that's another reason not to say that. Lions, spoiler alert. I don't know if breaking news for some. They're not good on defense. At all. Fire up every Green Bay receiver you have. Fire up the running back. He's going to be a receiver too. Aaron Jones, Dobbs, Robert Tonyan, Sammy Watkins. If Lazard plays, load him up. I don't see Brock Wright as a worthy option. I don't think, even if he plays, like there's not a league deep enough for that.
Ours is apparently. I almost went after him, but somebody else snagged him. I needed tight end help anyways, but
I have 4 capable tight ends.
Well, I lost Irv Smith and David Njoku, so
see, this is what I'm talking about. You and me got to talk a trade. It's gonna have to happen. Literally, honestly, the best one for next year is Tyler Conklin. I have him for $1. $1. You don't even have to cut that.
No.
Anyway, I can't even thank me. Doran is the one who picked him up. Anyway, back to football. DeAndre Swift emerged slowly from his injury last week. I'm not thrilled with his running so
Yeah.
far. You said it might have been something with the injury, and I quickly countered with, yeah, but he had 5 catches, which usually is more ankle work. So I who's the running back to start from this team?
I think, yeah, I don't know. If he's out there, it obviously hinders Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Or does it? Because he had 2 touchdowns last week.
Well, and that's the thing is like he is the end zone guy. We've just seen a couple of weeks where he's been a little funky, and Swift obviously doesn't help that. But yeah, I still like Williams. If Swift is still dealing with an injury, I'm not. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to play him.
Yeah, that's fair. He's my sit. DeAndre Swift is my sit for this game. Hard to say it, but
Yeah.
I wasn't thrilled last week. Green Bay, they allow 4.9 yards per rush attempt, but again, that ain't Swift. So at least from what we've seen, going back to the week before he got injured and last week. So, Green Bay also allowing 66.9% completion rate, which is meh. Like it's mid-pack, like most of the things that Green Bay's defense displays are mid-pack between 13th and 18th, depending on whether it's yards, air yards, rush yards, fantasy points allowed to everything. Like it's the most average I think I've ever seen a football team.
Yeah.
I have Green Bay coming from behind to win this game. Detroit has been notorious over the last few, well, I shouldn't say last few weeks, a couple times this year for getting out to hot starts, and Green Bay does not. I have Detroit narrowly leading at half, and that's all I have. I don't have a score or anything, but I take Green Bay in this one. Probably less than a score, in my opinion. Start Dobbs, start Tunyon, start the ball boy from Green Bay because he'll catch 2 passes. Everybody's gonna throw everything. Anything else from this one for you?
Yeah, I'm just looking up their wide receivers again. Obviously, I'm on Ross St. Brown. I
Khalif
mentioned
Raymond, Josh Reynolds. That's it.
right. Well, so yeah, Khalif Raymond may be used with Hawkinson out, with Reynolds being doubtful, and then I don't know. Oh, Cephas is on IR. Yeah.
It's
So
Khalif.
yeah, Khalif and Amon-Ra, and then you gotta hope Swift is involved in the passing game.
He will be to a certain extent. It's fall time. It's time to rake the Khalifs. Okay. He's on our free agent board, and I looked at him. But I also have like so many other good dollar receivers that I've just picked up or traded for. Like I have Devin Duvernay, who tripped and stumbled into him being a wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I'll take he's $2. Darius Slayton, $1. Like now the Kadarius Toney, who I also have, and now is probably the hottest thing on. Hopefully, knock on wood, is the hottest thing on Kansas City. I'll take that. I have DeAndre Carter, who all of a sudden for the next 3 weeks is going to be feasible. So, but like that proves, I say all that, folks. Just listen to me very carefully. You watch your waiver wire.
Yes.
Like on a week to 2 week basis, it completely rotates entirely.
I favor the waiver wire much more over trades, to be honest, because I struggle so much with giving up pieces. Whether that's a good thing or not, but it works for me.
Right. No, that's completely fair. But especially in our league where we have 53 men, we're picking up and dropping defensive pieces. There's no offensive pieces on the waiver wire almost.
Yeah.
Like our top wide receiver I think it's literally Khalif Raymond right now, or Greg Dortch. Like those are not, neither of those names were feasible except for the fact that Khalif Raymond will probably be the wide receiver 3 this week. Greg Dortch won't even put on pads this week.
Probably not.
There's like Robbie Anderson has seen more targets, and that means Robbie Anderson has seen both of his targets so far. Greg Dortch has seen 1. So, yeah. That's the difference in waiver wire. You have to keep moving your waiver wire. That's why 9 segments like ours, staying on the Twitter sphere, it's so important, because if you have to pick up those pieces to make your team get better, You can't miss. You have to know values. You have to know who you can drop. If you have a waiver wire that is processed at a certain time in a certain order, whether it's reverse of standings or something like that, you have to know and plan for, okay, well, I'm third in the league. I'm going to process behind, and team A, B, and C are probably all in this. So I have to have 1, 2, probably 3 options for an out if I have buy Mageddon. We had 6 teams on bye this week. Week, I think 13 or 14, there's 6 more teams on bye. So it's going to happen again. Round 2 will be in a month from now. So just all important lessons for the fantasy crowd out there.
Yeah.
Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I'm explaining things very well. It's like going to school for fantasy football. And I didn't graduate. I'm just learning this all in the last like 7 years. Next game, the 3-4-1 Colts are taking on. I just want that for myself. The 3-4-1 Colts are traveling to New England, taking on the 4-4 Patriots. New England 5.5-point favorites and an over/under of 40.5. I don't know how I feel about this over/under. I think New England wins, but I don't know if that's even a really like. There's so many interesting pieces about this game. So we already went over the injuries. Jonathan Taylor's out. Devontae Parker's out. The Colts are bad versus tight ends. They're actually one of the better groups against wide receivers now, in terms of fantasy points allowed, which I think changed since like week 4. Like, complete 180. Yeah, they're really bad against tight ends. Actually, that was what it was. I'm trying to not confuse my teams. I'm like, the Texans are bad versus running backs. The Jaguars are bad versus wide receivers, and the Colts are bad versus tight ends. The AFC South is where you want to go if you want fantasy points.
Yeah.
And so it shows because, thank good. Ellinger, I feel like he has to have more. I'm not going to bring up the obvious fact that about the Colts that I've just gotten angry about over the last 3 shows. We're not going to talk about that. Okay. So we're going to throw that away right now. We're going to talk about how they can be productive and how they can be better. So the first thing that I think is that Ellinger needs more creative play calls for him. The plays from last week seemed very dry, very drab, very run of the mill. First real start. He has a little bit of motor to him as a young kid, but he has to learn how to control the offense. And then that's probably a little hit and miss of this. Throw in a few more creative play calls. Make him be the person who has to make the decisions on these plays during the play. He faces a team that is top 3 in passes defended and has allowed it literally actually the lowest completion rate in the league, right there with the Bengals. Like, the Bengals now are 30th and the Patriots are 32nd. They'll all kind of motor between themselves. They're all very low, below 60%. Short passes, curl routes, tight end ins, tight end outs. Jelani Woods should be your friend this week. Mo Alley-Cox should be your friend this week. I forget who's in the slot because it's not Alec Pierce and it might be Michael Pittman. If it's Pittman or if it's Campbell, those are your friends this week, whoever's lined up. That has to be used as a huge advantage. And now you have Deion Jackson, who I think they have a better chance of winning with Deion Jackson than Jonathan Taylor, I think.
Honestly,
and that's crazy. That's crazy.
When he's played, he's done better.
Well, not only that, it's a better pass catcher. Which you need some short field and some bailout plays that Jonathan Taylor doesn't quite give you. Great runner, especially inside the marks. But Deion Jackson is he's just a little different. So I think is a huge tool because of his pass catching and his route running ability. For New England, another opportunity for a step forward. Mac Jones has to take another step back to the quarterback he was really last year. Jacoby Myers is prevalent. There's no Devontae Parker. Ramondre Stevenson is a huge part of this pass game. Block and load. If you traded for Ramondre Stevenson 4 weeks ago when it was a buy low thing, you were probably extremely happy right now. He's been so good. Like the past 2, he had 7 catches last week on top of like 70 some yards. He was so good. Indiana is allowing 4 yards per rush attempt, and Stevenson's a bulldozer. So I imagine that'll probably be on the low end of his average. I'm going to say 4.8 to 5.2 will be his average this week. Yeah, there's not much to say about this one. The only thing that I getting this, like looking at this game and talking about it, it has trap game feels to me. It
Yeah.
really does. It sounds crazy because this is one of the games where you could be like, oh, I'm confident in the Patriots. Like I'm real confident. But the Patriots are 4-4. The Colts are a missed field goal away from being 4-4 themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I feel like if the defensive line for the Colts can cause havoc, make Jacoby or make Mac Jones miss some throws. I looked at Jacoby Myers. That's why I almost said Jacoby Myers. Make Mac Jones miss some throws. I mean, honestly, this to me, this game matters if Kwity Paye is out. I know he was questionable for the defensive end, the defensive line for the Colts, but there's some good pieces there. If you can get some pressure on both ends, this could be trap game all the way. That being said, I feel like the Colts are never really out of this game. New England will lead most of the way, and they end up getting a stop on Sam Ehlinger in the fourth, 24-22 Patriots.
Okay. Yeah. No, I kind of have that inkling, as that unfortunate inkling as well, of a trap game. We've only seen one game so far of Ehlinger as a starter. So Belichick and his ability to sort of scheme certain things out, or
Very missing. He has
yeah,
nothing to go off of.
right. And if to your point, they give Ehlinger a little bit more of that play writing to sort of benefit how he should be playing, how he does play, whatever. I think they do need to get him more involved as a bit of a running guy, which we've seen. Granted, they're much more experienced, much higher caliber players. We've seen New England struggle against Lamar, and we've seen them struggle against Justin Fields. So if Indianapolis looks at that and tries to do stuff like that with Sam Ehlinger, that could potentially be a problem for New England. But I do see New England being able to come out of this with the win, just because Ehlinger second start, no JT, although to your point, Deion Jackson has done pretty well in his stead. Yeah, it's that's part of me is concerned, but I think New England wins this.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Narrowly for me, probably a little more of a gap for you. That's fine. I don't hate the gap. I don't hate it either way. I just hope it's not trap game because it really smells like it. A lot more than the Eagles Texans was last night. We saw what that game was the first half. My sit is Alec Pierce. I don't see him playing slot a lot, and that's why I feel like this. Not to say that Ehlinger can't lock one, load one, and throw it 40 yards to Pierce on the outside. He did lead the Colts in pass catching last week.
In yards, yeah.
Yep. He had 3 catches for 60 some yards. So just my feeling off of the scheming at short play against a rather tough front seven from the Patriots. Matt Judon, league leader in sacks up until he might still be the league leader in sacks. He's close to it.
He's usually up there, yeah.
Yeah, well, he had 8.5 after the Bears game. I don't know what happened last week. My start is Deion Jackson. He is to me.
He is the most interesting man.
I'm going to coin him the Dos Equis guy right now.
Nice.
Deion Jackson is Dos Equis. Yeah. So that's that game. We're gonna take our final break before we come back and finish out. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games left. We're about halfway through. And then we're going to give you the 5 fantasy flyers, and we're going to get on out of here for the weekend. Taylor, sign these dogs off.
See you on the flip.
And welcome back to part 3 of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 18. We're already up to episode 18. By the end of the season, we will have 36 episodes, and that's before postseason. So
Hot damn.
We are 50% of the way. 50%. Next game on our week 9 preview, Jets 5-3 will host the Buffalo Bills, who take a quick trip down I-90 and 87 south, and then they're going to end up in East Rutherford. Buffalo 11.5-point favorites, the largest spread on the slate somehow. Over under at 46. The Bills seem to just kind of keep on trucking. Doesn't really matter what you throw at them. Like the train's just on the rails, ain't gonna come off track. Perfectly fine. Not phased by a lot. Josh Allen has been fully adaptable. He's just kind of finding ways to win. Last week he ended up only throwing 218 yards, and they still successfully beat the Packers pretty decisively. I think that's kind of why the Bills are the AFC team, top team in the AFC East. Let's say that again. Jets, again, I mentioned this before. The only shot the Jets have is sticking with them offensively, and that means throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson threw for 355 yards last week. They were not very accurate at 3 interceptions, but if you're going to throw for 355 again, now's the time to do it. Michael Carter, James Robinson has a full week of practice. I expect to see him more involved. There's no Corey Davis. Garrett Wilson, sure, do it again. Tyler Conklin, yep, one more, please. May I have another. Anything to kind of keep the Jets within sniffing distance of a win here, because I think this is a big game for them to stay within sniffing distance of Buffalo, or for that matter, really a wild card spot.
Yeah.
Because it kind of seems like that 5-4 to 6-3 land is going to be looking really good for a wild card spot after this week, and they would be 6-3. They would be 5-4 if they lost. So just in the bottom end, more than likely. No Corey Davis. The rest of them, there's no Jordan Poyer for the Bills in the secondary. Somebody's going to catch something out there on a somewhat regular basis. That's my feeling for it. So I say take a shot at this just being a ceiling game. Wilson can't throw this ball less than 18 times. Like,
No.
just no feasible. If he does that and they are running, they do not plan on winning this game from jump. So that's not anything that I've noticed. I was looking forward to this game particularly when the season started because of Breece Hall. I wanted to see what he could do against a really good run defense. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Such is life, right? Such is life. I think the Bills lead the entire way. I don't think that's a surprise. Jets will probably have some sparks of good football, but after the first quarter, they're never really within 4 to 6 points. I got Bills 30, Jets 14. So start Tyler Conklin, and I don't think this needs to be said, but don't play Nyheim Hines because he doesn't know plays yet. He would be super touchdown dependent for fantasy relevancy. And I think he would only have 1 to 2 days practice max. He was traded the very end of Tuesday.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have Wednesday likely as practice. I would say he'd have Thursday and Friday.
So without Moss and Hines being limited at best, you have obviously Singletary and Cook.
Yep.
Is Cook more involved? Is Singletary just the bell cow? What are your thoughts there?
Singletary is the bell cow on the ground. The move for Hines, to me, says that Singletary is going to slowly be pulled further and further away from the pass catching game.
Yeah, for sure.
Due to the blowout possibility here, I don't hate a flyer on like DFS or FanDuel or something for like, I need a super contrarian play, James Cook. He had 1 catch for 41 yards last week in a game that really wasn't even a blowout. So if he catches 5 or 6 or 7 carries and ends up with 3 catches for 40 and somehow manages to find garbage time touchdown, he could have a 12 or 14 point fantasy day. And I don't hate that as like the ultimate flyer right now.
Yeah.
Because that's really going to be Singletary's role, but he was there for a pass catching back. I hate how his ceiling is going or is going to be treated now that Nyheim Hines is there.
Right.
But you also are going to have to get him involved in some way because you spent 2nd round draft capital on him.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I asked the question just because I'm kind of trying to figure that out myself. I don't have either of these players, but yeah, this week it's interesting as to whether they go with the experience of Singletary or if they do try to get Cook more involved. And to your point, if there's garbage time, then yeah, Cook could get pretty involved in that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I would lean that at least based on this trade for Hines, they're still a little hesitant about Cook. I think he's going to be a part of their future, but like we said, or we talked about with the trade, they want Hines this season for the experience that Cook is still working on.
Yep.
That's all to say that this game we may see Singletary actually be pretty involved, and unless they end up in garbage time, Cook may still kind of just be there.
This is interesting. Naheem Hines has a contract through 2024, right? After this year, there is a potential out. There's an option for 2 years at $9 million. It's fully guaranteed. I don't know if the Bills would pick that up.
That's interesting.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it's up to the Bills. It usually is. I don't see a lot of player options for these. Usually a team option. 2 years, 9 million, 0 dead cap. Yeah. The only thing I'm really fairly certain of is that the Bills will have a good chance at winning this game and will likely win.
Well, yeah.
Likely lead. So 11.5-point over under in New York, like not in Orchard Park. Like it's almost 2 touchdowns in Orchard Park, probably.
Yeah.
So next game, 2-5 Raiders at the 2-6 Jaguars. Las Vegas 1.5-point favorites. Over unders at 46.5. The Raiders need a bounce back game. The Jaguars need a good game at all. The only person on the Jaguars who's been dependable is Travis Etienne. So fire him up again. Don't be shy. I don't see him being too far off from last week. 24 carries, 156 yards last week, had 3 catches. Yeah, why? Yeah, why? Sure. Adams, Devontae Adams. He had like 2 catches or 1 catch last week or something, but had 0 assault charges, so that's nice. It's important to note, okay? My question from this is because Adams surely isn't going to do that again.
Right.
Jaguars are they're not good against wide receivers. 8th in yards allowed to wide receivers, so you can line up Devontae Adams with really good confidence. Pretend last week never happened. Is Mac Hollins a dependable wide receiver 3 for you?
No, he's not dependable.
Good, because I have him sitting this week. He's
okay.
my
Yeah. It's not to say that he won't flash like we have seen, but I don't have confidence on him as at that level.
Okay. That's probably about where I am too. I can't have full confidence in him just yet to see him going out and consistently getting, I'd say 8 to 10 targets in a game. He had 7 targets last week, going 2 weeks ago versus the Texans because he had 2 catches, probably 4 targets or so.
So I see 3 targets week 7, 8 targets week 8.
Okay, 3 and 8. Okay.
Yeah. And then before that, they had the bye, and then 4 targets, 5 targets, 11 targets, 8 targets.
So 11 is definitely a ceiling game for his targets.
Yeah, and those weeks,
like
Waller and Renfro were out, I believe.
Renfro was for sure. Waller only missed, I think, 2 games now.
Okay.
So, well, technically he missed 3 because he didn't do anything in the game before the bye either. So you're right. Yeah, I hope Waller comes back. I have a good feeling about him if he plays. I just do. I don't know why. I just like something in my head. Like I woke up this morning when I started to write the first part of this, and I was like, oh, something about this smell. Like I smell Darren Waller having a good game, like because he needs it.
Yeah.
He's like the lone Mohican who has not had a good game as a tight end. Like even Kyle Pitts broke out last week.
Right.
And he just hasn't had that like 7 catch, 80-yard touchdown game. So Jacobs has upside here. Jacksonville's allowed the 8th most fantasy points to running backs, so they just allow people to score in general, in the fantasy side anyway. It could be a bit of a back and forth game because both defenses have not been ideal in any capacity.
Mhm.
Jacksonville's pressure at the line has slowed in the last 3 weeks. They have not been able to get to quarterbacks as much as they would probably prefer. But the Raiders haven't had a good pass rush most of the year. So there's a big question mark as to where the final of this score is. I'm going to take Jacksonville on the win. Close game at halftime, Jacksonville pulling away in the second. My start is Waller if he plays. That's off a complete gut feeling. I don't have anything. There's nothing in the world, like no stat in the world that has said, hey, Darren Waller has like caught he averages 90 yards versus the Jaguars in his career or something dumb that I can reference. I just literally going off a gut feeling. If you want something based on pure stats, my start would be Zay Jones. And that's just because yards to wide receiver 2s versus the Raiders are like a 20% increase. They give
Okay.
up 20%. They're like a 20% buffer in there over what they normally produce. So anything else for this one for you? I find this to be like the lone game I have zero interest in this weekend. I'm sorry to say. I have players, fantasy players on both teams. I have Evan Ingram, I have Zay Jones, I have Darren Waller. I don't care.
Yeah, I also feel like if you're watching this game with any of your players in it, especially from the Raiders side, you're kind of like cringing the whole time, just waiting for something to happen. So it's just not good for your health. But I think the Raiders will win this. But it's not going to be pretty on either side.
Yeah, you're taking the Raiders to lose again, and you're gonna take the Raiders to beat the Jaguars, and the Jaguars will lose their 6th in a row.
Is it that many in a row? Wow.
I think they had lost 4 in a row going into last week's contest with the Broncos. The Broncos won. That would be 6. Trevor
Damn.
Lawrence, breaking news, did not take a step forward this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next game, it's the first 4:00 game. The 5-3 Seahawks at the 3-5 Cardinals. Arizona 2-point favorites. The over/under is at 49.5. This to me smells of huge NFC West implications. Like just like we're halfway through the season, so like this will be the game that crosses you over the 50%. And if the Cardinals are 3-6,
Yeah.
they did. They gone. It gone. And the Seahawks are at that point, they're almost a shoe-in for at least a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Like just I know they have to play the 49ers again. I know they have to play some really good teams. This is huge for the Cardinals. They have so much more to lose than the Seahawks in this game. This is the second time I believe I think they already met once, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I don't recall. I can look that
I
up.
feel like maybe I dreamt that. I don't know. If they didn't, the stakes are just incredibly high. I would say that whoever is out of this division that's not the 49ers, it's the second time.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. I did not dream that. I feel really good about that because then I would need medication. But I would say whoever these are the two teams to step in behind the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Eagles, into the other wild card spot. I would say the NFC South isn't producing but one team. We can fairly say that. The Eagles are probably a lock at this point. We can say that. So I'm confident in saying that these are the two teams that are going to end up battling till the end of the year for that final wild card spot in the NFC. For Arizona, as far as defending, they will have obviously you have to work on the tight ends. We know that. Like I said earlier, both of these teams are the bottom 2 teams versus tight ends in fantasy points allowed.
All right.
The worst. Like it's bad. But they also have to, as far as Arizona, you got to contain Tyler Lockett, who seems to be Geno Smith's favorite target. And then when you lock down Tyler Lockett is when DK Metcalf pops up.
All right.
So the man who has a patellar tendon injury and doesn't miss a game, what a monster.
Unless he's got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, then he gets carted off. Kenneth Walker is probably the second worry for Arizona, which the unfortunate part is that you can't just focus on the pass game. You also have to worry about the rush game because Kenneth Walker is so explosive, so good at what he does. The defense has been a little bit more, I feel they've been a little bit more run centric for Arizona. Maybe not. I don't, maybe that's just me. But they're only allowing 686 yards on the ground through 8 games. So my math is off the top of my head. I didn't figure it out, but I'm sitting here swimming at right around 95 yards a game. No, it's less than that. 85 yards a game. I'm in the ballpark. Anyway, on the other side, what does Seattle have to contain DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, it's DeAndre Hopkins. Like, he came back and it looked like he didn't miss a minute.
Yeah.
I think he has, what, 23 catches in 2 games since he came back?
I don't know.
Almost 300 yards. Like, it's pretty manly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he has
he's a
22
man.
catches. Yeah.
A manly man.
22 catches and 262 yards.
Really? That's it?
That's what I have here.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. That seems low to me. Well, and
I mean,
anyway,
it's almost 300.
it's closer to 300 than 200. I'll take that. But yeah, the tight end is like a good fantasy spot. You can trust Lockett, trust Hopkins, trucks. Yeah, trucks are good. Trucks are bigger than cars. Trust Ertz. I don't care about Arizona's run game. It's non-existent.
Yeah.
James Conner plays, doesn't play. He can lay down and take a nap in the backfield. He's useless. He's not useless. That's very rude, but he's not been
He's
producing.
better than what they've been playing with, but yeah, they don't get a lot out of the run game.
About that. He plays and he doesn't play very well. I think Arizona wins this game, and I think they have to come from behind to do it because they start all games slowly.
They do, yes. Yeah.
It seems like that. The team is completely different with DeAndre Hopkins. They could put 14 on the board in the first 8 minutes of the game. Like, let's not sleep on him. But again, Seattle has a lot less to lose than Arizona does for this game. If Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray and the entire offense didn't sit down on Tuesday's walkthrough and went, this game is the first insanely important game of the year, there's a big problem. Kyler Murray wasn't there. I lied. He played Call of Duty. Start Ertz, start Disley, start Hopkins, start Lockett, start Walker, start Kyler, start Geno. The over-under at 49.5 and Arizona only being a 2-point favorite at home leads me to believe this could be that barn burner game that you love to see. I put sit Moore, and I'm trying to figure out who Moore is now.
Rondale
Moore. Yeah, Rondale Moore. My only basis for that, this is another one you can take with a grain of salt, is that Tariq Woolen has been very good on that side of the field. So that's it.
Okay.
He may not even guard Moore that much. He could be on Hopkins more, but that was my only, because again, this at a 49.5 point over and under, I would take the over on this.
Yeah.
I could see this being like a 28-27 or a 30-28 game or a 30-24 or something. You know what I mean? Like, over. Anything else from you on this one?
Not really. The last time they met, 19-9, favor of Seattle. I'm kind of leaning Seattle again, but it's obviously going to be close with Hopkins back. This is a much different team, the Cardinals. As for Disley or Fant, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up for Seattle, but as we've talked about, tight ends from both sides, fly them, especially Ertz, obviously, because he's more involved. He's more consistent than the Seattle guys. Yeah, I don't know why I'm favoring Seattle, but they just seem to get it done. Did I blow your mind? All right. You want me to move on? I cannot hear you.
There we
Oh,
go.
you're back.
I know. I had a little. Man, you know what?
The
Every
cat
time.
knocked
Every
the
cord.
cord.
Yeah. No, the cat
Do you
didn't
have
do
a
anything.
cat? You do have a cat.
I have two cats.
Two cats.
I
Okay.
have two cats, a dog, a turtle, 4 fish, and a bearded dragon.
I have
But
seen the dragon in the background a couple times. Okay.
yeah, he's kind of like
There he
that's
is.
his cage. Yeah, that's his cage right over there, and the turtle right next to it. Those were
Oh
both.
damn. Yeah, I didn't see the other ones before.
When we effectively move, I'm going to get a man cave, and I really want them to be in the background. A, because
Nice.
I don't mind sacrificing some space, and B, he can be the show mascot.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
There we
Okay.
go. Fantasy flyer. Does he fly? No, he doesn't do anything. He sleeps, and that's it, and poops. That's it. Yeah. Moving along, we'll go on to the Rams, 3 and 4. At the Buccaneers, 3 and 5. Tampa Bay, 3-point favorites at home, over under 42.5. Again, kind of tells me this game could be close. But the Rams need some kind of boost.
It's a couple of
just it.
sad teams.
Yeah, depressing, just like the world's smallest violin.
Yeah.
This Rams team has no resemblance of a Super Bowl team we saw last year. There's no rush game. The pass game is scattered. If it ain't Cooper Rush, you can't really trust it. The team has to get this ball moving, and it probably has to start doing it on the ground. I found out some interesting stats, so I'm gonna lay them on you because I was super invested in getting a lead on how this game is gonna go, and I spent 40 minutes figuring it out and got nowhere. So
let's see what you got. What do you got?
Let's see what we got. So Matthew Stafford is 35th out of 35 qualified quarterbacks in completed air yards per reception at 4.2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. 4.2 yards beyond the bed.
That stinks.
Right. Yes,
that's stinky.
That points to the yak, the yards after catch, is saving this team, which Cooper Kupp was going into week 8, the league leader in yards after catch. Had over 300 yards after catch. Well, he had to.
Yeah.
He ain't catching 80-yard bombs. He's catching them at the 7 or the 8 or the 10, and he's running for 30 yards. Fine, it all counts, right? It just means that Cooper Kupp is very good at that, and it increases his stature, makes his importance basically unimaginable. It also highlights that there's no threat of running. There's no play action. They can they can fill the box. They can attack the quarterback because that's where it all is happening. It's all happening within the line of scrimmage. And the Rams aren't being very successful at it. So Stafford is 8th in sacks in the league. He has been sacked 8th most. Yeah. The Rams are 32nd in points scored while being 23rd in passing yards.
Oof. Yeah, I knew they did not have a lot of passing yards. That has definitely been hurting them.
But to a certain extent, there's a little correlation. Like you're off a few spots for the most part. You know, you want the rush part. Everybody's kind of got a rush on the other side, and they're and it will move some things apart. They're 32nd in rush yards. They don't rush. There's no rush. If I need to say it again, they don't rush. The only thing that's more infuriating is the Colts and their offensive line. That's it. I said I wasn't going to talk about it. Damn it. On the other side, Tampa Bay, however, is also not good at rushing the ball. They are 31st in rush yards. Whoa. All right. Big step up. But they have at least threatened the running because they have a running back who's capable, and they rush the ball. Fournette averages over 20 carries a game.
Mm-hmm.
Averages. Actually, I think it's below now because I think I took that from 2 weeks ago, and he hasn't rushed 20 in either of those games. So he's probably just below 20 yards. Either way, it's a lot more than the 4 times that you're getting with Darrell Henderson. Godwin and Evans are the usual dual threat. We know that. The Rams have had a tough time covering Ayuk and CMC last week. We saw Ayuk he had an open catch from CMC, so that counts. But he also had 6 catches. CMC had 9 catches, 9 targets.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it allows this similar dynamic to be present with the Bucs and their success because we've seen Leonard Fournette be successful as a pass catcher out of the backfield. It's increased the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's had anywhere between 4 and 10 targets out of the backfield, kind of in that same CMC realm. So you loosen up the secondary. You have 2 monsters on in the outside on Godwin's and Evans. And now, again, this Rams team can't be pulled in two different directions on either side of the ball. Brady's a league leading passer, and I expect another big game from him in that aspect. I would not be surprised to see Fournette have a really good game both on the ground and in the air, so to speak. Rashad White, even I don't hate the idea of seeing him with 6 to 10 carries and 3 to 4 targets. Because same concept, put some youth back there, make it look a little different, throw them off. My start is Fournette. My sit is Henderson. I just told you why. I think Tampa Bay has a lead. I said 17-10 at halftime, plus or minus. I'm fine with that. I think the Rams will get close at some point just because Tampa Bay's defense has been kind of holy.
Yeah, and they're without Antoine Winfield, if I'm saying
The only one. Sean Murphy Bunting is back now, which is big actually because they have Van Jefferson, who's that deep threat at times, can be when he's used correctly. Cooper Kupp, who can be used in 37 different ways. He's the Swiss Army utility receiver. But I think Tampa Bay will win this, and it's going to come down to them actually stacking the box again and beating the Rams the way that everybody else has beat the Rams, and that's making Matthew Stafford absolutely go insane back there. So anything else for this one from you? The Rams are literally, they're like on the very cusp of my bottom 5, which I will be going over on Tuesday. My bottom 5 for all 4 positions and my bottom 5 teams through a halfway point in the season.
Yeah. I would say that the Bucks, this could either be a very good game in favor of the Bucks, or it could be a very close game and low scoring. The Bucks, at least last game that I'm remembering, actually drove the ball down the field. They just struggle to score. If they can start scoring, then this becomes a very high scoring game on their side. The Rams, I still think are going to struggle. And then the only other thing I would say is the Fournette usage has kind of dipped the past couple of weeks. So to your point, he was up in the 20s for attempted rush. The first 6 weeks, past couple of weeks, it's been 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Same thing with receptions. They've also tapered a little bit. So maybe they try to get him more involved and bounce the offense a little bit more there, but they just need to score. For the love of God.
I agree with that. Sunday night football game, Titans 5-2, Chiefs 5-2, Kansas City 12-point favorites, over under 45.
Yeah.
This is the third of our host v host games. Well, we'll lay it out for you very easy terms because we got less than 10 minutes. Chiefs are coming off a bye week. Tennessee doesn't know if they're going to have their quarterback. Tennessee doesn't throw the ball. Kadarius Toney will make his debut. Side note, doesn't really affect the outcome of the game, in my opinion. These are two teams that have completely different 5-2 records. I didn't even know the Titans were 5-2 because it smells a lot like 2-5.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry is the only thing you can trust for Tennessee, in my opinion. If they throw the ball a lot, I like Robert Woods. I think this game would be be a lot closer if Treylon Burks was playing. He's not.
Mhm.
So I think Woods will have his first 7-catch game. I think he's going to go for 70 to 80 yards. And I think Kansas City wins by well over a score. Start Robert Woods. Don't play Kadarius Toney yet because you don't know what they're going to do with him. I'm also hesitant on MVS.
I go back. I mean, he's just a dart throw every week, but he seems like they want to get him involved, or it seems like they want to get him involved.
Oh yeah, if you got enough receivers, he's another one of those, and he's got speed.
Right, that's the thing.
MVS, Toney, and Sky Moore next year. The average age of that group is 23 years old or 24 years old, and they all run 4.4s or better.
Yeah.
Anything else for you from this one? I'm going to take the Chiefs 30-20, and I think that's probably being nice.
Yeah, we're close. I have the Chiefs 31, Titans 18.
Okay, that one's good. Final game, Ravens They are in New Orleans for Monday Night Football game at the Superdome. Baltimore 2.5-point favorites. Over under 48. Insert Duvernay. Pull Bateman out of all lineups. We'll see you next year. So sorry about your Liz Frank injury. Saints are rolling with Andy Dalton. They have no Michael Thomas, but that doesn't really hurt them. Hasn't hurt them. Definitely won't. Saints defense has been porous. They give up a lot of points, and they aren't very good at returning the favor. Dalton has kind of turned the ball over. Bad times, a lot of bad times. Ravens, of course, are poor versus wide receiver, which I think means start Chris Olave. So that means I shouldn't have to message you at 1 p.m. on Sunday and tell you to start Chris Olave.
I have him in.
Good. All right. Make it sure. I didn't check your lineup yet. He could see a big, he could, if Dalton can be accurate with even half of his throws, I can see 120 yards for Olave and a touchdown here. The important side for the Ravens, obviously spread the ball. If Mark Andrews plays, they're going to have to be, the Saints will have to be cognizant of his whereabouts. And they're going to have to run with whoever is there. If it ain't Gus Edwards and it ain't J.K. Dobbins, Justice Hill, and Kenyon Drake, sure, run it. I don't trust either of them on a fantasy standpoint, but from a football standpoint, they have to move the ball in a different way than just throwing it. Jackson has to throw for 200 yards here. I'm sorry, 150 won't do it. Especially against a team that allows so many points in the Saints. I think this could be close, but turnovers will dictate. I think whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game. New Orleans is worse at that, so I'm going to take the Ravens by less than a touchdown. Start Duvernay and or Robinson if Andrews is out specifically, because again, he should be throwing this football. Lamar Jackson should. I'm going to sit Dalton for that turnover rate that I just explained because I can see him having a fumble or two and an interception or two here. So those are my takeaways. Anything from you on this one?
No. Might be able to, like you said, with the Ravens, you might be able to find some value just because of all the missing pieces.
Yeah. I don't hate a complete dart throw on Justice Hill or Drake, but again, temper expectations. It's a dart throw. Duvernay was good with Andrews. If Andrews is out, Duvernay is the man.
Yeah. Now you're a man.
There it is.
Yes, that's it. So I'm gonna let that play in the background while we give you our 5 fantasy flyers. Okay, I'll stop it now. You want to go first? You want me to go first? I have 4 of my 5, and I can make a 5th one up off the top of my head.
Yeah, why don't you kick us off?
All right. My first one is Deion Jackson. Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world. Okay. Number 2, Tyler Conklin. I am going to take the Jets throwing a whole bunch and no Corey Davis to mean another Tyler Conklin game. All about it. My 3rd is Devin Duvernay. Just talked about him. Now he's a man. My 4th is Deontay Foreman. He's starting to become borderline not a flyer. And I think that's fair to say. If he explodes this week, I think you and me will have to have an off the show conversation about whether he's a flyer anymore, because he is probably going to be heavily rostered more so than he already is. My 5th, I'm going to take Will Dissly. I think it's going to be a Dissly week in the end zone.
I also looked at one of their tight ends, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. Okay, so we have some overlap here. I'm trying to decide if I should change some.
Did you hear that?
No.
You said I couldn't pull the trigger, and this. Oh, that's why, because I had it muted. Hold on. This is what I played.
What a muppet.
Gordon Ramsay telling you you're a fucking muppet. All right, go ahead. Your 5 fantasy flyers now that I've ruined momentum.
So I'll start off with the ones that are different. Josh Palmer, Garrett Wilson, Robert Tonyan. I also have Deion Jackson and Foreman. I didn't have Foreman, but because I didn't think he would qualify as a flyer. But
so you already had this conversation with my associates.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What you did.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say that next week he would definitely probably not qualify as a qualify as a flyer. I also want to throw out Kenyon Drake. He's not one of my guys here, but if Gus Edwards is out, Kenyon Drake, I think, has a decent game. And I also looked at Duvernay, but I ended up going Wilson, to your point, Conklin with the Jets. Somebody's going to go off.
Yeah.
So I'm
and-
rolling it back with Wilson.
And that means Elijah Moore will all of a sudden
Yeah.
be irrelevant again.
Right.
Or Braxton Berrios will have 9 catches out of nowhere. No, really good. I like those. Of course, as we run every weekend, the winner, the most fantasy points in a PPR format out of our 5 fantasy flyers gets 15 host v host points. I currently lead 97-68. Somebody is getting at least 3 points from the Miami-Chicago game. And then I have a good faith that the other two games were both right on, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good mix there for your fantasy flyers to spread it out for everyone. Josh Palmer, Garrett Wilson, Robert Tunyon, Deontay Foreman, Deion Jackson, Tyler Conklin, Devin Duvernay, Will Disley, between the 2 of us.
Yeah.
Those are the 8. A couple other names, DeAndre Carter, don't be shy. Zach Ertz isn't really a flyer, but
Right.
feel free to lock it on if you want to go with that. Romeo Dobbs, yeah. Any Green Bay wide receiver, they're playing Detroit. That's never been a bad idea. Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, Raheem Mostert. Just a few more names you can probably trust for matchup strength. So I have nothing else from this one. Taylor, if you don't either, we're going to get on out of here and have ourselves a weekend, okay? All right there? All right.
Peace out, y'all.
Muppet.
Peace out. I got to play the song. Hold on.
Sign us out.
Yeah,
Roll it
I
out.
got to. I hope I can. There we
Bob
go.
Barker reminding you, help control the pet population.
Good luck this weekend.
Good luck, everybody. Have fun.
Goodbye,
Watch some
everybody.
football.